and welcome to another Zelda podcast. I am David Geisler, and today I'm here with my regular co-host, Kady Roberts. Kady, how are you?
I'm doing so good. We were just talking about all your cool little collectibles you got here, which you can see if you come and join over on the Patreon. Plug.
We spend a little time with our patrons, on our Magical Sword tier patrons, on video before we record these episodes, and I couldn't help myself. I started chatting a little bit. Oh, it was a joke about like buying Zelda. Oh, because it was the mug. I got a new Tears of the Kingdom mug. And then there was a slippery slope from there where we started talking about all the different things that are kind of in the quote unquote set here. Sometimes we'll do like unboxings or gameplay videos and people can see some of the stuff. But anyway, today, Kady, we are talking about our favorite characters from Skyward Sword.
Yay!
And something just occurred to me. We're going to have to pivot pretty fast. Well, let's do this. I actually think this episode idea was also yours. I think you pitched it for me. Mm-hmm. What was the impetus? What was the want to do an episode like this for you? And while you do that, I'm going to pull up our listener feedback, which we forgot to organize before the episode. I already did it.
It's in a folder.
You already did it?
Uh-huh.
Well, you're going to get co-producer credit for this episode.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy. What? It's already there?
I love doing just favorite episodes. I love talking about the characters. I'm a huge story-based person, so anytime I can talk about the characters or the NPCs or anything, I jump at the opportunity. And Skyward, I haven't officially finished it yet. I've talked earlier about it on like the previous episode, I believe. That I'm by Zelda Dungeons walkthrough. I'm about on chapter 15 of 18, so I'm very close to the end. I'm onto the surface for the third and final time getting the dragons. But that being said, I love Skyward. I love the story. I love all the characters. I think they're all so unique. So I'm very excited to talk about some of my favorites.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. We'll jump into our listener feedback and let's get right into it.
Absolutely.
So the first one here is I've got one from Buford T. Ogletree. And I think we also have something from Buford on our Patreon or something. But right now I believe that this is just an Instagram DM. And Buford T217 says, just the other day, "Hi, I have a question. But first off, I'd just like to say I love another Zelda podcast. I became a fan of the Zelda franchise in 2021 when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time. And it's grown into a full-blown obsession. Lately, I've been branching out into the other games, which leads me to the question. I want to enjoy Ocarina of Time the way it was meant to be played. I've attempted to play the ported version on the Switch a couple of times, but I'm not a fan of the button mapping. I'm seriously considering purchasing a refurbished N64 and an original Ocarina of Time game cartridge, Majora's Mask as well. I have purchased a Nintendo 64 mock-up controller for the Switch, but haven't been able to sync it for some reason. I'd like to get your opinion, if it's worth it, based on the differences in gameplay between the Switch port and the original game. Again, love the podcast. Buford, I would love to talk about this because I am passionate about the Nintendo 64 emulator that's on Nintendo Switch. I love it very much. I love playing Ocarina of Time on it, but it's true. The way the button mapping work is I feel that they did the best they could with a classic Switch controller, but it's not great for most Nintendo 64 games. And most people can't order the Nintendo made Nintendo 64 controller for the Nintendo Switch that they sell on their website because it's almost always out of stock. A few people are lucky enough to have them. So you almost have to take a third-party route. And I'm looking around my recording studio right now because I have one over here. And maybe I should have grabbed it before the episode. But there is I think it's Retro Fighters makes a Nintendo 64. It's okay. We'll find it somewhere.
I was going to say, I could go run and try and find it.
Kady pointed. It's fine. Retro Fighters makes a Nintendo 64 button layout controller that I like very much. And I use it for all of my Nintendo 64 games. And I almost prefer it to the Nintendo 64 controller, Kady, because it does take, from a Nintendo 64 controller, how the analog stick was down in the center and the digital was on the upper left. When that controller was first designed in the late 90s, 3D gaming wasn't a thing yet. It didn't exist. And so there was a lot of throwing spaghetti at the wall of how do we make a controller that can control things in 3D space. And Nintendo at the time for the Nintendo 64 visualized, I know how this works. Some games will be 2D and some games will be 3D. Let's make it so that if a person's playing a two-dimensional game, they can hold the controller like a normal controller and use the digital pad and all of that. But for special situations, players may want to use something, and they invented the analog stick, which is technically a joystick, but Nintendo 64 was the first thing to use what we now these days call an analog stick, which uses a series of potentiometers to know how far you're pushing a stick in one direction or another. But at the time, the way the logic happened, and nobody knew differently, or nobody knew the right or wrong version of this. But Nintendo was like, all right, cool. Yeah, we'll make this super cool thing for navigating 3D space called the analog stick. And I mean, I'm just performing this. This is an artistic reenactment. But and then Nintendo was like, yeah, cool. Okay, so sometimes they'll use it to walk around. And well, wait a second. Are they going to use their left hand or their right hand to use this device? Boy, oh boy, there might be times where they need to use their right hand to use the analog stick. There might be times they need the left hand. Let's just throw it in the middle. And so for some games, people will hold the thing on the left and use their right hand on the analog stick. And for some games, they'll hold the buttons on the right and use the analog stick with their left hand. Kind of funny that Nintendo didn't consider the idea of just putting two analog sticks on the controller. And it took Sony doing that with their DualShock 2 controller for PlayStation 2 to say like, well, what if we just put two of them on the controller on each side? Nintendo did not apparently, or maybe they did some testing, but it would seem did not make that logical connection when they were making the Nintendo 64. Their way to solve the problem was that you would just hold the controller in 3 different ways depending on the game you played. All right.
Whew, a lot of that went over my head, I'm going to be completely honest.
So the Nintendo 64 controller does not map well to what we would call a modern game. What I love about what Retro Fighters did with some of their Nintendo 64 like controllers is that they have the C stick or the C buttons and the A and B buttons and everything perfectly mapped to how your thumb would feel on the right side of a Nintendo 64 controller. But they've taken the left side and they've made it compatible, or what we would expect on a modern day controller, where the digital pad is lower, the analog's on the upper left, the upper part thing, just like a normal Switch Pro controller. There was a time when Retro Fighters first released these things, and Buford, if you have a Retro Fighters controller, the first batch that they made the button mapping wasn't compatible with the Nintendo Switch Online service. It was just bad timing. The controller got released, and a month or two later, Nintendo Switch Online service came out, or the expanded one did for Nintendo 64. I'm trying to get through this quickly. And so they had to release a firmware update for the controllers. And I had to, if you really wanted to, I had to go to their website, download a firmware update. You plug the controller into your computer with USB, you reboot the controller, you re-upload firmware, and then they only way for them to make it, because they didn't have any extra switches on this, any dip switches or anything on the controller. So the way you do it is you get your controller synced to the Switch. It thinks it's a PC controller or something, and you do it just by holding the sync button. But then you have to hold the B button and the start button for 5 seconds, and then that equals like what a dip switch would be to toggle the firmware so that it works. Okay, that's a lot of like little steps. So it is, even to this day, when I use this Retro Fighters Nintendo 64 controller, you turn it on, I hold B and start for 5 seconds, and then okay, it works. But it was a lot to get it going. Since then, Retro Fighters has released a proper Switch compatible Bluetooth native. Oh, also by the way, the one that I have, the Retro Fighters controller I have, needs a USB dongle. So I have to plug a USB dongle into the side of my Switch dock. The controller speaks to it like it would like any kind of PC controller. And so there's a lot going on there. I still feel like it's worth it, and I love using this controller. But since then, Retro Fighter has released a proper Bluetooth compatible, straight to the Switch, Nintendo 64 mapped controller, of which I haven't used yet, only because I already own this older version. But I don't know which version of what you have, Buford, but I'd highly recommend what Retro Fighters is doing. And hopefully that would work for you. Otherwise, I don't know. I'd love to. You can reach out to me on Twitter or Threads or whatever. I'm on Raptor Paint. I'm Raptor Paint on Twitter. And if we ever want to DM and talk a little bit about the specific controller you have, I'd love to talk about it. Furthermore, my favorite way to play Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo Switch service, Kady, is using the 8-bit do arcade stick, which I have right over there in the recording studio. I've Instagrammed and tweeted about this. The arcade stick is a digital 8-way input, but you can convert the analog input to digital just with the flip of a dip switch on the controller. So you can control Nintendo 64 games with a old school arcade handle. And there's all the buttons, the X, Y, A, B, LR, L2, auto, whatever. There's like 8 buttons that you can have on this thing that are mapped pretty well to, in a weird way, so Z targeting is done with the pinky. So you run around, you Z target, and you can still use your thumb and index fingers for all your action items and your sword swinging or anything. It's so much fun. It's super weird, but the 8-bit do arcade stick actually weirdly converts to the Nintendo 64 Nintendo Switch Online service quite well. there, I'm done.
Wow.
Oh, it's so much fun. I'm a controller guy though, and I love like weird controllers and different controllers and how they connect. I just got 2 new ones right there. Look, I got 2 more Zelda controllers over there the other day, and it's very. I think it's just like, it's that. Well, I'll get on. Welcome to my TED Talk. I'm going to get onto a whole thing about how the controller is a metaphor for our extension into the universe of the game and all of that, and even the click of a button matters and all of that. But anyway, Kady, what's our next listener feedback? Oh, it might be a Buford one. That's super long. We can skip that one today, and I'll circle back on Buford's message over on, I think, Patreon.
Okay. So I'll go over to Davy Boy. I believe this is Apple Podcast.
It is indeed.
Okay. It's called Best Podcast Ever with 5 stars. Thank you, Davy Boy. I found the podcast a few months ago and have been binging it since. I'm a 14-year-old in 9th grade and really couldn't find anybody to talk about Zelda with, and this perfectly fills the urge in my heart to hear people geek out about it, and heck, make me geek out about it too. Woo! All of the hosts are amazing. Dan being my personal fave guest host. He is so funny, and that Owen Wilson impression of his is nice. Anyway, thank you, David and Kate, for making my life a little bit more fun with this podcast. Please shout me out. I'm shouting you out, Davy Boy. Hello, Davy Boy. David, say his name.
Davy Boy.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's the literal shout out?
Yeah.
I see. And a bunch of exclamation points, 3 tongue out emojis, and 3 green heart emojis.
Amazing.
Yeah, Davy Boy, thank you so much for the review. Thank you for the 5-star review. Reviews on Apple Podcasts, at least, are the best way for us to get more exposure. And it's a great way to support the show. Dan's a personal friend of mine. He's, dare I say, a best friend, as they would say on the schoolyard. And he lives in St. Louis these days, but we do try to reconnect and make some shows. He also made 1 season of a show on 6-5 called Fan Fiction with his friend in St. Louis. And it's just a hysterical show. I highly recommend it. They both literally had children around the same time. So we weren't able to greenlight a season 2, but the 14 episodes that they did over on Fan Fiction, where they talk about video game franchises and what they surmise headcanon of what they think these games could be or where it would go.
I've read many a fan fiction.
Yeah. Well, and actually it's a bit of a pun, but it's called Fan FIX-TION because they're fixing it. Well, they're fixing it. It's all in fun and in play. It's more like, what would they do with it just if they could do anything? Not that the existing lore is wrong or anything like that. Fan fiction, it's a lot of fun. Their very first episode is a Zelda episode, but my personal favorite episode is they had a really good Pokemon episode, and one of my personal favorites was actually the Star Wars episode, which might be their season finale.
Nice.
But anyway, thank you for the support, Davy Boy. Dan's great. We try to get him on the show as much as possible, and that's true. Dan has a great Owen Wilson, and all he says is wow, but it's spot on.
That's okay. My roommates get on me all the time for it. I have a huge crush on Owen Wilson. Fun fact about me. Which is a very, exactly. Wow.
Wow. Oh, there it is. You had it. I was just kind of saying wow in a weird way.
Yeah. Very interesting fact about me. I don't know why. I just do. I think it started because of the Loki series.
So it's crew cut Owen Wilson. It's Morbius crew cut.
Yeah, it started with Mobius, and then since then it's divulged into just all the forms. Wow. Yeah, you've got a deep dive of Owen Wilson history to get into if that's the case. Because him as Loki is like this is very much like maybe his 3rd phase of his career. Oh yeah, I went in. I haven't watched a ton of his stuff, but I know I've seen like Night at the Museum and stuff. And
cool.
I watched a movie I didn't even realize he was in because my parents put it on, and then I walked in and saw them watching it, and then I was just enthralled watching the rest of it. And it was funny because Tom Hiddleston is also in that, who plays Loki. I can't remember what it's called, but it's about him being like an artist in the city.
I forget the guy's name, the filmmaker, but Midnight in Paris or something. I think
something
it's called.
Like that. It's very good.
And yes, it is. And I'm completely Woody Allen. It's a Woody Allen film. Apparently it's a great time to make. And they knew each other from that film when they did the series. Tons of fun. I think it's called Bottle Rocket, but one of his first films he ever was in with like Luke Wilson and company. Is called Bottle Rocket. So if you ever want to do a deep dive Owen Wilson and it pops up on a streaming service or something,
I was going to say, catch me doing an Owen Wilson podcast.
We got one more listener feedback and we'll get into our favorite characters here. This is a comment on YouTube of our video, David plays the first 10 minutes of Tears of the Kingdom. So we don't really do a lot of video content on this show, but when we want to have a little extra thing here or there, we do an unboxing or a let's play or something like that. And you can find all that content on our YouTube page or under the fun stuff tab on in the menu bar of our website.
Nice.
Not to imply that anything else isn't fun on the website. It's just things that don't fit into categories that we do goes into fun stuff. All right, let's see. Roy's Gaming 927 here says, "You guys are sick. Just I said that in a way it was almost like I was making fun.
I was going to say, you guys are sick.
You guys are sick. Just subbed. I enjoy listening to your podcast on Spotify. I cannot believe that a podcast could grow and gain more cast members just during like 7 years. Keep up the good work, AZP Squad. Found your podcast during my Twilight Princess playthrough about two weeks ago. Keep up the good family-friendly work. Thumbs up emoji, thumbs up emoji, thumbs up emoji."
Thank you.
Yeah, Roy's Gaming 927. Thank you. We're having a great time making this show, and it's true. The family has grown. It's expanded and contracted over the seasons, and the friends we've made along the way has really been a special experience.
Yeah.
I did not finish that sentence. I definitely walked into it and I was like, how do I get out of this one? Anyways, yeah, it's been great. And Roy's Gaming 927. Thank you for enjoying, and thank you for subscribing over on Spotify. Kady.
Yeah.
Favorite characters in Skyward Sword. We just recently did our Link's Awakening review episode.
Yes.
And when we were talking about the characters in that show, in that game, on that show, I almost skipped talking about Link. And I was like, whoops, let's talk about Link. Let's talk about Link.
I could talk about Link all day from
Whoa,
Skyward.
really? This might take us to the break.
Him. Oh, well, maybe.
You got 15 minutes of Link content? Because that's what's going to happen.
I love this version of Link so much. I actually have talked a lot about him to my roommates. One of them who has never touched Zelda, but she humors me. And then the other one who she played a lot of the old classic Zelda games. And recently I just got her into Breath of the Wild. And so I'm going to try and get her to play Skyward at some point. Her sister played it. She watched her. Whatever. Point is, I love this version of Link because one, it is like a very clear age marker of, he's probably like 15, 16 years old in this game. He's like in the Knights Academy. He's in school. It's a schoolyard. He has like schoolyard bully rival whole thing. And they set up right away that this Link is, he's like a hero, but he's not heroic.
Right.
They set that up very quickly of, he's lazy. He just likes to sleep in. He doesn't really care. He will make fun of someone or pick fights with someone.
Which again, is just so funny that you're saying that because that element of Link was introduced in Ocarina and was a staple through. So by the time it happened in Skyward Sword, it was the fourth or fifth time it had happened. And all of us playing Skyward Sword were like, yup.
No, for me, I was like, I love this. And I also really loved his relationship with Zelda in this game. I think it's definitely the most romantic out of all of them.
Certainly.
And I'm going to talk about Zelda more later, but all of his dialogue options are so fun because you can be nice or whatever, but you can also be very mean in the game.
Yeah.
And there are sometimes, I can't remember, it was when I was just playing this last time I was playing, I was talking to one of the digging guys and he was basically asking me to stop and help him. And my options were either ... just stare at him or be like, I'm in a hurry. So I was like, I can't even be nice to this guy.
Skyward Sword was one of the first games that really gave you the opportunity to actually reply to characters. Before that, certainly Ocarina of Time, it was really just have you understood me? And you can say yes or no. Skyward Sword was really the first time where there was actual character input. Even Wind Waker, I think, is pretty light on that, if non-existent. And so it makes me wonder. There's also always a translation element, and so it makes me wonder if the team that translates for, let's just say, English, how much fun, quote unquote, they have with some of this stuff. Do they stretch it a little further, or it's left up to interpretation for how, maybe the Japanese version of what Link says there is kind of sassy, and so they're like, okay, what's the American version of that, or the English version rather?
Because you can definitely change it depending on what form of speak he uses, whether it's the polite speak or if he does informal speak to someone, and that kind of changes the tonal meaning. So you have to change that in English because we don't really have that, so to speak.
Yeah.
But by far, one of my favorite interactions just getting straight into the game was that beginning part where Groose, he steals your bird. You have to go find the bird and you go up and talk to Groose. And, he's laying into you saying oh, I'm perfect for Zelda, all this kind of stuff. And you can look at him and just say, nice hair, period. Yeah. and then he loses his mind.
Yeah.
I
There's
love
some
it.
sassiness there.
Yeah.
And some of that is probably by design from the story writers, and some of it might be from the translation team having some fun too. You can never tell. But regardless, it's the product we get in English. And I was in for it too. And maybe it's because he is a teenager.
Yeah. No, a lot of it feels like I was like, yeah, I can relate to this Link a lot of just, I don't want to work hard. I just want to chill. I just want to sleep out, whatever. And it reminds me of, teenage boys that I know back home, whether they're like young cousins or just like friends of family.
Wait until you get into Wind Waker, where he like flat out denounces any kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
He starts the game basically upset that he has to do anything.
Yeah, and I think I really like his progression through Skyward a lot of like, I mean, I guess kind of spoilers if you haven't played Skyward.
No, we do. This whole podcast contains spoilers. We as we talk about any of the games, we assume that our audience has also played them or is okay with us talking about them.
Okay. So the whole thing with Zelda, she is the reborn goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And her basically saying like, yeah, I wasn't really in any danger, but the only way for me to get you to the point you need to be at is to pretend I was. Because I knew you are kind of obsessed with me and you would do anything for me. And I'm sorry that I kind of used you. I feel bad about it. But literally, there was no other way I could have gotten you to do anything because you are the laziest person I know.
I had to wake you up.
Yeah, she's like, this is the only reason. And I was playing the game and I'm like, that's true. That's fair. I can't even be mad at you for that.
Yeah. Even in the early days, even in the Ocarina days, Anuma and Miyamoto have commented on they wanted the story of Link in every Zelda game is supposed to be a character becoming a hero.
Yeah.
Link is supposed to never start as a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And so the best way to have growth is you really spread those ends of the spectrum. So if you want someone to be the ultimate hero by the end of this story, you start them off as the ultimate lazy dude.
Yeah.
And so that's where some of that comes from. So it really does offer a lot of growth.
And it's fun. He's very expressive in the game. He has a lot of big reactions to things, very funny faces. I love his different screams because he screams differently, whether you're falling off of like Skyloft or if you get burned by something. Like he has different reactions to things. He's just so expressive.
This was I think this was a different voice. We did like a Link Voices episode a long time ago. And most of the time, Link in the early days was done by a female. And then there was a time where it switched to male, and it might have been Skyward Sword. So this might have been a new performer.
It sounds like a male.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, I love him.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm cool. I'm cool with Link too. I don't know. I remember when I first started playing Skyward way back when it originally came out on the Wii. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, wait, so Link's in Hogwarts? What's going on? Because when it originally came out, we were right in the middle of those film series, And I was wondering if it was informed by that a little bit, even passively. But it is interesting with the Link in Skyward Sword because he's, again, I'm being informed by Link in Wind Waker. And Link in Wind Waker starts out, pardon me, but as a total snot. And this Link does not, even though I guess he is a bit sassy. Yeah,
he can be sassy, but he's still genuinely very nice. And you can tell when you go around and interact with the people that the people tend to really like Link and like have good relationships with Link.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to talk about Zelda a little bit? You want to just go right into it?
I would love to.
Oh, wait. Technically, I'm supposed to ask you what another favorite is, but let's just do it. Zelda.
I would love to do Zelda. I love this interpretation of her. I think it's probably my favorite. Mm-hmm. Breath and Tears Zelda is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I still think she's really great. But I love this version of her. She's funny. She's like just so charming. And I love her design a lot. I like the bangs. I like the whole look she has going on. And I think it's such a cool twist for her to actually be the reborn goddess, not to have goddess blood in her, but just like to be the goddess.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, for sure. Aesthetically, a kind of a simple design for Zelda compared to previous Zeldas of which you haven't played yet, I'm realizing.
I like it though. I like the simple design because it also sets her in that she's still a teenager. She's still a kid.
Yes.
She's not a princess. She's just like the daughter of the principal. So she is just a kid. And that also kind of brings in this big shock factor of finding out she's a goddess and like kind of seeing how much both Groose and Link kind of fight over her playfully because it's like it feels very just high school. Just typical high school girl.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Zelda in Twilight Princess is almost a queen. She's super regal, even though she's, somewhere maybe in her late teens. And to go from that to Skyward, I remember it really, I liked it, but it was like, it really was shocking to have like a young Zelda. There have been Zeldas that are younger. Minish Cap Zelda is like basically a kid. But to have this kind of teenage Zelda, like a Zelda that, so, okay, this is what I'm trying to say. I wasn't able to fully realize it as a point, but, up until Skyward Sword, every single Zelda was really kind of like a one-note regal character. Yeah. And this Zelda isn't regal at all, but she kind of becomes regal a little bit. Yeah. Not through a monarchy or not through any kind of like, castle situation. Yeah. But she does through
regaining her memories.
Well, the memories and being the goddess. But to have her start as just like a nice person who cares about Link was a real pleasure.
Yeah, and I think it's fun because of specifically the dynamic between her and Link is something that I haven't seen before in playing Zelda, just because it wasn't even just, they have like these great like romantic moments, which I do, but also like she pulls Link over and complains about him to her dad, and like she'll like beat up on Link or she'll make fun of him, or there's even a part where Groose and his buddies are like picking on Link and gonna like beat him up or mess with him, and Zelda comes in and like gets in between them and is the one to kind of take Groose down a peg.
Her pointing at Groose is like one of my favorite memes.
It's so good. Yeah. So it was kind of this moment of like she was kind of Link's hero before he was hers. Yeah. And it's kind of a really cute moment. And even her messing with him, because it's very clear she knows that he likes her and she likes him. So they have that moment of, you finally won like this loft wing race. Let's go up here. And she'll come up and be like, do you know what's next? And all this. And then she just shoves him off the edge. She has a lot of moments like that where she'll just shove him off places or just mess with him. And I think it's such a fun twist on things.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a growing affection between the two. But there's also a little bit of a history between the two. It's like maybe they've had a crush on each other for a year or two.
They said like they were childhood friends. They grew up together. Yeah. And so it really does seem and feel like this was something that they've kind of, they became friends when they were a few years old. And then they kind of grew up together, kind of gradually kept growing this crush until it's like, it's just a part of who they are now.
Yeah. And so it's deeper than just like it's not just infatuation kind of. Yeah. They have that history too, which you can definitely feel.
And I kind of like that comparison with Groose because it kind of makes you see, Link and her have this history. And Groose points that out of like, I don't know why she likes you so much. It must just be because you guys know each other so long. So having that distinction of Groose, who is that person that's like, I just saw you and I'm infatuated with you, versus Link, who's like, I know you as a person and I'm infatuated with you, is a really nice distinction. And I mean, we're probably going to cut to break soon, but I definitely want to talk about Groose.
I was considering doing Groose and then going to break.
Okay, I'll go right into Groose. Yeah.
I'm just kind of winging it here.
Groose was a character that I did not like at first. I thought, I mean, that's the point. I wouldn't say I hated his character or anything. I thought it was fun to dislike him. It was fun to make fun of him.
Yeah, he's the villain in the beginning.
Yeah, I always tell people he's like Gaston. He's the Gaston of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I thought with his red hair, I thought he was going to be Gerudo or something, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that. But
I don't think it came to be. No. There's some fan theories that like the Gerudo bloodline comes from his bloodline, but I don't think that's anything in canon.
No, but I have recently gotten to this like kind of final stage of the game, and I adore him. I like when he has that moment where he follows you down and he just collapses on top of you. It's very funny.
Yeah.
His whole character is very funny, which is something I enjoy because it's not just like, I'm the big bad rival and I'm mean and whatever. He's hilarious, even when he's not trying to be.
Yeah, I agree. They had to make, if he was truly like a true big bad bully, they had to make it comical so that it's not quite as bad. But also for him to take his arc, then it allows it. Because if he was truly just cruel in the beginning,
for no reason, then it's like no arc could fix that.
Exactly.
Whereas this, it mainly revolved around him liking Zelda and not understanding why she didn't like him back. And looking at Link and being like, you're lazy, you don't do anything. I'm this big burly dude. I train every day. I'm really into my studies, this kind of thing. So him seeing Link and Zelda being into Link, he just can't get that through his head. And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But then having that moment where he comes down and talks to, he calls her Granny.
Impa, yep.
Yeah, old Impa, but he calls her Granny, which I think is very sweet.
Yep. When he finds his true mate.
Yeah,
I mean, in a way, like not in a romantic way, but like he kind of finds his true mate.
Yeah, she gives him a new purpose.
Yeah.
And so when you come back for that third moment, he even tells you, like, one of my favorite moments is when you're about to go into that like time circle thing, and old Impa tells you like to go on through, and you kind of look back at Groose, and he's like, I should stay here. I want to protect her. I want to protect things. You deserve to go see Zelda. Tell her I said hi. I adored that moment. And then coming back and him saying, I'm going to stay here. This is what I realized I was made to do, is to stay here, protect this place. You go and do like the flashy heroic stuff. I'm going to stay and be a knight, because that's what I trained to do, is be a knight.
Yeah. And he learns support and everything. And he even supports in some of the imprisoned battles and stuff.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. And also, I remember when he said, I'm going to stay here, that when I first experienced that, the game designer in me was like, okay, this is a gamey-wamey thing. Of course he can't go. I'm glad they figured out a way for him to not go through the portal. But it lines up with his character arc so perfectly that it's like, maybe it is just story-based.
I didn't even think of it from a like mechanical standpoint. I just thought it made so much sense. And I also like, because you think of Groose and he's kind of stereotypical bulliness, thinking, oh, he's like big burly, probably doesn't have too much brains, not much going on. But then you come and he's built this entire system going through with like the rail carts and like the bombs, and he talks, and you talk to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I learned that I really love doing this, that like this is what I want to do. So he not only like kind of changes mentally, I guess, with like where he's at with people, but also he finds kind of like a new purpose, not only in the knighthood, but he likes to build things. Yeah. He likes to create things.
Maybe he was just a kid that was sent in the wrong direction by some ill parenting. And
exactly. Maybe they just put him in like the knighting school type of a boarding school type
maybe
thing.
He had to prove his worth in certain ways. And perhaps we could surmise that Impa has relieved him from that and allowed him to find his true value.
Exactly. And there's even that sweet moment of him talking about Colin and Stitch, I think his name is.
Yeah, it's something like that. Stitch, something. Yeah.
Of him, when you are going back and he's saying he's staying there, of being like, hey, they're going to be really upset, but please let them know, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. I feel bad because I know they look up to me. And him kind of acknowledging that meant a lot to me personally, because when I was playing through the game and I saw these two guys like losing their mind, oh, where's Groose? Groose is so upset. I always thought of them as his little cronies. I thought Groose was kind of using them or like just having him as backup. So for Groose to have that moment of saying like, oh, I genuinely did care about these guys. Please, like, I know they're going to be upset. I know they look up to me. I was like, that's good. That means a lot to me and kind of helps me a lot with your character to kind of know that you acknowledged that.
I agree. He is one of the strongest growth arcs of any Zelda character in any Zelda game.
Yeah.
Maybe the nastiest thing he does is have Link's face on his punching bag in his bedroom.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Maybe that's a touch, violent, but that's like really not that big a deal. I think that's more of just a joke, but like, okay. Yeah. So I'm perfectly fine with Groose. I spoke about Groose a little bit in our review episode, but I feel like I've shared my thoughts about him here a touch. Yeah, I think I've said everything I need to say about Groose, because I think there's also some game mechanic stuff. He does become a game mechanic aid in certain ways, and that's exactly the whole point. Have the story and the game mechanics combine to make a good game.
My last thing I'll say about Groose, because I could talk about Groose a lot. I also like they showed his vulnerable side a lot, of getting to see how much Zelda meant to him. So when she disappears, you can go into his room and he's sitting there like just curled up crying on his bed.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what? At night?
No, like throughout the day. He doesn't leave. He's just like sitting there crying in his bed. And like if you go and talk to Colin and like Stitch or whatever, they'll say like, oh, like Groose has been a mess since Zelda left. He like can't get out of bed.
Maybe I did see that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I am remembering this moment.
And if you even go and try and talk to him, he won't even like try and bully you. He'll just tell you like to leave him alone or like not now. And he's just like worried about Zelda.
I feel bad because I don't think I ever interpreted that as a serious moment, but I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I always saw that as a moment where it's like, oh, you actually care about Zelda. Like, it's not just like, oh, she's like a pretty thing to you. Like, you are genuinely worried and caring about her.
I think at the time I accidentally misinterpreted it as him like having a little micro tantrum or something. Like, no, I didn't get what I wanted, but maybe I like your interpretation much more.
I don't know. That's how I interpret it,
I love it.
at least.
I love it. I think that lines up more. Maybe I was making inappropriate assumptions because it was, first time you play, you don't know where he's going. And that could be the case.
Yeah, because the first time I guess not really the first time I played through, but like it was something when I first saw him like that, I was thinking that same line that he's just throwing a tantrum. But as I thought back to it later in the game, I was like, oh no, he was genuinely like upset about this moment.
Yeah, that's great. Now I want to replay Skyward Sword. Let's go to break. We'll come back and we'll do some of the supporting characters, and we actually still have a couple main ones to talk about too.
Yeah.
All right, great. It's the first day of school, and I'm walking around downtown Chicago with hundreds of other students. Everyone's getting back from summer break, and you can tell that they're happy to see each other after a couple months. For me, however, it's been a little longer. Hi, I'm David, and I want to introduce you to Returning Student, a documentary podcast that I've been making about my return to a college that I left 20 years ago. I'm back in the same city, at the same school, the same student ID number. Everything else feels completely different. My fellow classmates are literally half my age. My professors work in my industry. Sometimes I wonder why I've come back at all. But then I get the opportunity to sit down with one of my professors and have a conversation with them, which usually yields a little bit of wisdom. You can find the show on all major podcast providers, as well as our website, returningstudentpodcast.com. A lot has changed over the past 2 decades. And we are back. And what a lovely break we just had.
A very long, luscious break.
Yeah. Secretly, we basically stopped recording the first half, and I reset the camera, and we're right back into it. So we're hot. We were still talking about Groose a little bit, even for those 30 seconds that we weren't recording. Let's dig into some side characters a little bit. Did you have any standouts during that were just on, that were just like in the town?
Pippin. I love Pippin.
Okay.
I will admit part of it was because when I first came across Pippin at the beginning of the game, I was like, wow, he's really cute. But then, which then my roommates were like, with those eyebrows?
I thought Pippin was a little annoying.
No, I think he's cute.
Sure. I'm into it.
But I like talking with him. I like how he's kind of like the senior. He's kind of the prefect, so to speak, if you're talking to like Harry Potter terms.
Maybe that's why I thought he was annoying.
Yeah. But
he was nice enough, though.
Yeah, he's nice. And I like his little scene where, sorry, Colin, but you get the letter from Colin, the love letter, and you can either give it to the hand on the toilet for paper, or you can go and like take it to the girl that he has a crush on that doesn't know who he is, because also she's like years above him. She's his upperclassman. And you take it to her and you find out, oh, she likes Pippin. So then you run around and you go tell Pippin, and there's this whole moment. Did you do this?
Well, I gave the letter to the hand.
Oh, okay. So let me tell you.
Both times.
I
didn't learn my lesson.
Let me tell you what happens, because both times I did it this way because I like this.
If you give it to the hand, it's a very quick answer. You give it to the hand, and it's just like Girahim's trick. He's like, haha, thanks, didn't need it. You suck.
Actually,
so you waste the paper if you give it to the hand.
Have you played it on the Switch version?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because I don't know if it's true, but I heard that the hand like falls in love with Colin.
I mean, maybe there's a little bit of a text box about that or something, but it's not like
they say like if you go to Colin at night, you can see like the hand on him like when he's sleeping.
Well, maybe that does happen a little bit. I didn't explore that far, but I know you definitely don't get a gratitude crystal.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
There could have been something about the hand saying like, "Oh, wonderful," but I also haven't discovered the whole Colin thing. But okay, anyways, so what happens the other way?
Yeah, so Colin gives you this letter. You take it to the girl. I can't think of what her name is. She's kind of just for this one scene.
Yeah, sure.
And you hear her talking about how she's in love with Pippin, and it's a very similar situation of Link and Zelda. Of she's talking, we've been friends since we were kids, and childhood friends, and I like him and all this different kind of stuff. So you give her this letter, and she reads it, and she's like. Immediately she opens it and she's like, wow, this is awful handwriting. It's just so funny. She like reels into him. Basically, she's like, wow, I didn't know these are such beautiful words. I didn't know this kid felt this way. Maybe I should like return his feelings. And then that's like pause. And she's like, as if, and like she's kind of a jerk about it.
Yeah.
But in order to keep progressing, you have to then go and find Pippin, tell Pippin that Colin confessed, and he gets freaked out because he likes this girl, and he's like, oh, did I not act fast enough? I gotta go like tell her.
Okay.
We go down, Colin and her are together. He's like, so like, what did you think? And then in comes Pippin from the door and is like, wait, kind of like a I object
Stop
moment.
that marriage.
Yeah. And comes in, and then she's like, oh, I love you, Pippin. And he's like, I love you. And Colin's just broken.
Oh my gosh.
And he runs out of the room crying, and he's like a mess for like the next few days. But then Pippin and her give you some gratitude crystals for it.
They get the gratitude. What a weird twist there.
Yeah.
Is it Karain, Malara, or Oriel? Do any of those sound familiar?
Oh, maybe Crane. She has like the two pigtails.
That's Karain.
Yeah, it is
Yep.
Crane. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think
I'm
it's
cheating,
her.
and while you were talking, I pulled up Zelda Dungeon here. So
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it with Karain. And then there's another moment with Pippin that I don't know if you'd seen. I didn't even know it was something that would happen because you don't get anything from it. But there is a way to get gratitude crystals once you get like the little, I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it a leaf blower.
Sure.
And it's, you go into Pippin's mom's house, and it's really
Yeah, you
dusty.
clean it up.
You clean it up.
I did that.
What I didn't realize is if you go back there at night, Pippin, you can hear an argument. It's like a cutscene argument between them about Pippin saying like, we're poor. I have to work like nights and everything. And you were spending our money, and is upset. And when he comes out, he gets really mad at Link.
Yes, I remember
he realizes Link is the one doing this. And then you can go in and like you'll ask her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, he's just overreacting. I want to do this. I'll pay you money." And I'm like, "What?"
I think I did it twice just to see what you
did
too. Yeah.
to see what happened. Nothing happens, but I'm like, I wish more came of that, because I ended up going online, looking up tons of stuff, looked all over Zelda Dungeon, seeing if there was like a continuation to this, but it's not like a quest line, so there's nothing else.
It's doesn't she give you a gratitude crystal at one of those points or something? Because
she does the first time.
Almost every single, NPC interaction or side quest in. Oh my gosh, what's the name of the island? What the heck?
Skyloft.
Skyloft. I was thinking Sky Island in my head. Is gratitude crystal based?
Yeah,
which is fine. So she gives you a gratitude crystal the first time. Then I guess it's just an extension of the story.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's kind of like how we're talking with Tears of it's just something that you can find in the world that happens, but I like Pippin a lot, so when I saw him that upset, I wanted to do something to help him, but they don't let you.
Do you have much to say about Batru? The
little demon dude?
The demon dude who's collecting all the gratitude crystals? Not a lot there.
I was going to say, there's not a lot there. I haven't gotten enough to make him human yet. I'm writing at like 65 crystals. I don't know how many you need.
Oh, it's like 80 or 120 or something like that. I can't remember.
I'm getting up
and
there.
There's different ones. Like if one of them, you get close enough, but you got to, go all the way.
But I did like how you meet him with the little girl that he's down there playing with. I did really like that.
It's a little spooky. When the first time you're doing it, you're like, what? A monster? And
it creeped me out.
Yeah, and you have to find her, go through the graveyard at the right time and all that stuff.
Yeah,
or he's at the graveyard or something.
Yeah, you have to like go to the graveyard, and it has to be night, and you have to push a certain stone that you like hear from. And meanwhile, you're going to the different like lumpy pumpkin and stuff, and people are telling rumors about this demon and this devil and all this. So then you go all the way down and you find this cave. And the second time I played through, I kind of knew that he wasn't anything wrong. So I tried to go up and talk to him, and it won't let you. You have to pull your sword out and act like you're going to hit him before it lets you do anything.
Oh, wow.
So in my mind, I'm like, again, it might just be like mechanics thing, but in my mind, story-wise, I'm like, oh, Link, there is no talking. Link is like, I see you're freaking me out. There's this girl here. I'm just going to take you out and worry about it later.
Yeah. I wonder if they assumed that people would rush in and go right for the attack.
That's what I did the first time I played. I was just like, I'm going for it. So then when I played that second time, and I kind of knew, I wanted to see if there was any other options, but there really wasn't.
Test the system a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh? Let's see. I
like Fledge.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can do Fledge.
You know Fledge?
Mm-hmm.
I like his little quest line a lot. I'm not a fan of his little minigame because his minigame is awful. But
Fledge was one of those where in the beginning I was kind of, well, I guess I'm using the word annoyed a lot today. I apologize. But he kind of annoyed me too. But then, he comes around, right?
Yeah, he was your a lot of this feels like stereotypical high school. You got like the pretty popular girl, you got like the big beefy guy, you got like the lazy kid that ends up with the girl, and then you got the nerd, which is Fledge.
Yeah.
And he gets picked on by the bully, which is Groose, and so he wants to get big and strong, and he sees Link as kind of like his shining light. He wants to be like Link. And so I like his little quest line of you kind of coming in and giving him stamina potions, but on the other hand, I'm like, am I doping this guy up? Because like that's kind of where my mind went, because each time you go in and it gets obscene to the point where he's doing like 4,000 push-ups and I'm like, here's another stamina potion.
Oh my gosh,
like,
of course.
I don't know how I feel about this. Because then he's like, I could have never done it without you. And I'm like, you couldn't have done it without the potions.
It's not like I was sitting there clapping along.
And then you go to him, and I'm pretty sure his character model changes. Because like when I saw him after that, I was like, you look buff. I was like,
maybe they buff him up a little.
And so then afterwards, he's kind of like this beefhead where like his mini game is let me throw some pumpkins in the air and you can shoot them so I can get a workout in.
Oh my
gosh. Like how he says it, so I can get a workout in. I'm like, I don't know if I like this anymore.
Oh, wow. Wow, I don't know if I went that far with it. When I've played Skyward Sword on the Wii once, I played it on the Wii U once through emulator, and I played the HD version for our review. And I don't think I did that with him ever.
Oh.
I didn't go full gratitude crystals for any of my playthroughs.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I kind of like, I try to seek them out. I seek them out and have it happen organically. I would try to find some, but I didn't like walk through any of them or anything. So some of this I don't know. This is interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just this day. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about that one.
I know. Did he make it seems like self-improvement at first, but.
Well, yeah, at first it's like.
Did he go too far?
Yeah, at first it's like, oh, he's trying to do like 5 push-ups and he can't. He's too tired. So it's like, okay. He's like, oh, I wish I had something to like keep me energized. And it's like, oh, okay, I just unlock stamina, whatever. Stamina potion, give it to him.
Yep.
And then he tells you like a couple days later as like you do stuff in the game. He's like, oh, can you stop by my room again tonight? Like so-and-so. And I'm like, okay. So he stopped by his room. Now he's up to like in the hundreds. And he's like, I wish I had more energy.
How do you know he's at his hundreds? Does he say like 98, 99, 100?
Yeah, he says it as he goes. And so then you bring him another stamina potion. And then again, you progress. He's like, you should come see me. And I'm like, am I your dealer right now? What is happening? Because I'm like, you can go and get these stamina potions. There's a reason you're not doing this.
Gamey-wamey.
Yeah.
But anyway, no.
So I like Fledge, but also I don't know if I feel comfortable with what I turned him into.
I did not know that's where Fledge went. Oh my gosh.
Did you? Sorry, I'm like kind of rambling.
No, that's how what our favorites episode is supposed to be like.
Yeah. Did you do the stuff with the sales clerk girl? I wasn't even thinking about talking about her today.
You just read my mind because I was going to talk about Beatrice next.
Beatrice, that's her name.
Yeah, I think I spoke about this in our review episode, and I don't know if my emotions have changed. I think for the first time in my life, I grew a crush on a video game character.
Really?
Yeah, I was all about Beatrice.
I didn't like her.
I don't know why. I don't know what. I don't know what it did for me, and I'm so embarrassed to say this because I'm game design man. But like, playing her and like going and then going to the house afterwards and all of that. I don't know what happened, but I remember like I was getting to the point where we had our little secret, and maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe it's the drama of it all. And then going to her at night, and then I would do things where I'd go do another dungeon, and by the time I'd come to Skyloft, the first thing I wanted to do was like, oh, I wonder what Beatrice is up to. And I'd go find Beatrice.
That's so fun.
I don't know. It was a transformative experience for me, and I don't know what happened.
No, for me, I was like, no, it feels like I'm cheating on Zelda. So when you had that like opposite quest for the gratitude crystals, did you go the route of like you like stayed with her, or did you go the route of like breaking it off for her dad?
No, I think I can't remember, but I think I stayed with. I think I tried to go as far as I could because Link, maybe Link is like almost cheating on Zelda, but David was courting Beatrice.
That's okay. I mean,
don't know.
Technically, Link and Zelda aren't together, but I fully broke it off. I felt really bad about it. Like I was hoping there was like a way I could let her down easy, but the game won't let you. You have to be very blunt. And that's another moment where I'm like, wow, Link is harsh. Yeah. Because she's nice.
I think I ended it with her being like, okay, I get it. This will be our secret or something, which is not arguably not particularly healthy. But I think that's as far as I went with it. And I do remember maybe that's why I was like feeling emotions, because I didn't do it in the Wii version or the Wii U version, but in our review episode for HD, I did fully do the Beatrice quest line or whatever. And every time I'd go talk to her again, there was the whole like, ooh, should it be a secret or not? Or should we break it off or not? And I'd kind of like, I go, oh, maybe I should. This feels not right. But okay, yes, let's keep going. And it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I was like, it feels obsessive, and I feel like I'm not giving anything back to you right now. So I don't know what's going on. So I did break it off with Beatrice, and I think it's funny because now whenever I go and like swap stuff out, I think her line is she always says, "Oh, are you coming to like remind yourself of my beauty that you missed out on," or something like that.
Oh, what? I don't know if she ever said anything like that to me.
Yeah, she's like very bitter about it.
Oh, if you do say
break
no.
It off, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
She's
so uninterested.
I have never ever played like a dating sim or like a coffee talk or anything like
really?
that. Usually I'm not drawn to any of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's fun. I'm sure it's fun or whatever. Maybe this is the closest I've ever gotten to a dating game.
Yeah.
It by accident triggered something in me. It was very strange. I didn't expect it to. I was like, oh, cool. At the shop and then another thing. But when I hit that moment where I realized that an hour or 2 or 3 of play would go by and I'd come back to Skyloft and my first emotion was, I want to go check on Beatrice. That's when I was like, oh.
I get it now. No, I've played many a dating sim, and I also really like when games just let you have like romance options.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love Baldur's Gate 3, and I love the romance options in it. I love my vampire boy that I romance every time I play the game.
I see. Oh, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3. I played a few hours of Mass Effect 2, and it seemed like there was a little bit of relationship-y buildy stuff there, but I didn't play enough of it.
Fallout 4. I love that was an option there to have like a little romance option in the game when it's like you wouldn't expect it in a game like that. Yeah. So, yeah, I love
the shop girl, Beatrice. Yeah, my girlfriend. No. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The love of my life, Beatrice.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Let's jump back to a main character here. Well, kind of a character. How do you feel about Fi or Fee?
Yeah, I don't get the amount of hate that she gets, but also she can annoy me a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's very funny whenever you go back to like Skyloft and you hit the little thing and she does a little song and dance for you because the dance is not good.
Wait, when she ice skates?
Yeah.
I thought that part was great.
What? Yeah.
I love it because she's such a robot and then she finally does like graceful stuff.
Well, to me, it didn't look graceful.
When she's like doing ice skating, right?
Yeah. I think it's just because of the animation for the game. Everything is a little bit more because of like the period it came out in. Yeah. So when I saw her, I was like, this just looks too mechanical.
There's one part where she does a wacko scream. That's a little weird, right? Doesn't she like scream at the screen?
Yeah, I think it's when you get like one of the like the flame of power, like the Triforce of Power or something. I see. But yeah, I think like the first time I was like, oh, okay. And then she kept doing it every single time. And I'm like, okay, calm down. We get it. I think it's fun whenever she sings with Link, though.
Well, maybe that's the part I'm thinking because her face looks so weird when she sings.
Yeah.
It's like, the animation doesn't line up with the audio. No, that's what I'm talking about.
She like leans down and she like leans back and she's like
so
wiggling.
Weird. That makes me uncomfortable.
Weird. The song is nice, but she's always, she's weird. I love her design, though.
So you don't like ice skating feet. Yeah, fair enough. That's fine. The only thing that I remember thinking she was fine, coming off of Navi and all of that. And the one part that I was a little disappointed with is that the whole conceit is that she's this kind of like pseudo AI computery type character. Mm-hmm. She's kind of like the Data from Star Trek or whatever. And when she gives you these, or the C-3PO, when she gives you these percentages of probability.
She always says 90%. Did you notice that?
What's that?
She always says 90%, and it gets on my nerves.
I remember it sometimes being 90, sometimes being 94, sometimes being 97. But it was very clear that it was never a real metric.
Uh-huh.
It was just a line of dialogue.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping that her dialogue would actually exhibit some information. Like maybe if you had collected 8 of the 10 things, she'd say 80% or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I wanted it. So the whole fact that she was like this data-driven character, but none of it was informed by data in your play. It was just lines of dialogue. I remember that being a little underwhelming.
Yeah, and I feel like her hints, I've used her hints a few times, and they aren't great. There's kind of like either they don't mean anything or it literally tells you what to do.
Well, Navi was called Navi because she helped navigate, or some say Navi. And that was the whole, that's why they named Navi or Navi that name, because she was a literalization of a game mechanic.
Yeah.
And so to take Fee And essentially, so we did a whole conversation. Maybe there's a blog post about this. Guiding characters in Zelda games is a way to remove the manual, have a side character be the manual in game, like the game manual. You know what I mean? And be the hint system and be the thing that tells you what you might need to do next if you lose your way. Sometimes that's done through fortune tellers in some of the games. But Fee, her only existence from a game design point of view is to be that handholdy instruction manual that you can refer to, but they just do it in like a narrative way. So I get it. I almost never used her, and you do a couple times and you kind of get a little bit of help. And so she never upset me in that way.
I was going to say, I like I said earlier, I don't understand the full hate towards her because I know a lot of people say they don't like her.
I think they're just trying to, well, if I may, to me, it feels like maybe people are just trying to like double down on the Navi hate or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's like, and that one.
Yeah, because, she didn't really do anything, but she also like, that's not like a good or bad thing. Yeah. She really didn't stand out. But like I said earlier, I like her design a lot. I would love to see some cosplay as her.
Well, you're in luck because one of our blog writers did an awesome Fee cosplay, and I'll have to share it with you, Stephanie.
Absolutely.
Klimov. I'll show it to you later. It's on her Instagram, but she did this great, well, technically Halloween costume where she did an awesome Fee or Fi, and her son was Link, and they just looked great together. Cute. It was awesome. Anyways, and then Midna is that in Twilight Princess, and there's less hate for Midna.
I was going to say a lot of people love Midna.
She had a lot of character. She did. Let's see. We've got a little bit of time left. We have not done Girahim, Impa, or Demise.
Can we talk about Girahim?
Let's do it.
I love Girahim. I love him so much. I literally went into my roommate's room last night because I was playing, and I was like, I need to tell you about Girahim right now because I had reached a point when I was fighting him. It's kind of one of his like big moments, I think, I don't know if it's his last fight or not, but it's after you beat him while Zelda is getting away with Impa into like the other world. He finds out that another way to get there. Yeah. And so he has this line where he's like, I'm going to make your ears bleed with your own screams. And then like he has this moment where he like takes his gloves off and he's like, my supple skin and my beautiful skin. I love how flamboyant he is.
Sure.
That's just, I literally started listening to ballroom music while I was playing against him because I was like, this fits very well. I don't know if you know ballroom music. I'm not talking like ballroom dance, but like...
Well, then I don't know.
It is voguing music. Like music you would vogue to.
Okay.
And I was listening to that while I was fighting him because I was like, this is all I can think of in my head.
Sure.
While I'm fighting him.
Yeah. Girahim's fine for me. When Skyward Sword came out the first time, the trope of being flamboyant equals scary trope was a little saturated in our culture at the time. And so I was not over it, but it didn't affect me in a way that I thought was unique or subversive. It was kind of like, okay, there was a little bit of that was happening in Castlevania. A little bit was happening just in anime. A little bit was just like the more flamboyant they are, the scarier they are because it means they're confident. There's a lot of layers there.
Yeah.
I think in today's context, experiencing Girahim, it's almost informed by a completely different point of view.
I think a lot of it goes into just how femininity and like queerness is viewed in like different settings, because back then, a lot of Disney villains were like that as well, kind of thought as this is bad, this is evil.
Well, the joke about a Disney villain is once they get sexy, that's when they get bad.
Exactly. And so
it's weird messages.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice that nowadays, because that's not really popularized anymore, when I saw Girahim, I was like, I love this man. Like, I like that it's just like a cool, maybe queer villain that has an awesome outfit and is super confident. He's super weird because he's all grabbing up on Link, and like his whole thing is he's always sticking his tongue out and like licking his lips and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I like literally I ran to my roommate and I was like, I have to show you a picture of this guy. I got to tell you everything about him because he's a villain, but I absolutely love him.
I'm into that. I'm very happy that you've had that reaction with him. For me, it felt a little forced the first time, but when I played the HD version, I kind of knew what was going on, and I did like that there was. I liked that. Yeah, you know what? I didn't expect to have this thought, but I'm thinking about other villains in other Zelda games. And you think about some of the original Ganondorf stuff, and it's all very macho, I'm gonna rip you apart kind of stuff. And so to have maybe that kind of pivot, but there's a fair amount of flamboyancy in a lot of characters in a lot of different Zelda games.
Absolutely. I was surprised when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time how many characters. I was like, oh yeah, like I could see you just chilling out on the street, and like that's what I've liked a lot about the Zelda series that I've played so far is it feels like they've been so inclusive of so many different kinds of people.
Yeah,
even
so.
like, because technically it is a Japanese company in Japan, and a lot of times you don't see as much diversity come out of Japan, but then you see like the Goron women, and you see like different people of color, of like the Hylians. You see different people that could be identified as like queer characters, and just all this different kind of stuff. And I don't know, it makes the world feel so much bigger and like more realistic, I guess.
Yeah, I agree completely. I really do. But technically, isn't Girahim? Is he also or it? Is he an it because it is AI? Because isn't he Demise's sword? Oh, you haven't finished yet. Oh no,
David!
You haven't finished yet.
No. Is that true?
Girahim is the alternate to Fi. They're the yin yang of each other. Girahim literally goes in and you've come to find out he is Demise's sword.
That's amazing. I don't even care that you spoiled that for me. That's so cool.
Have you done so you haven't done the final battle with Girahim yet, which is just before Demise. He gets nuts. He turns all black. He gets nasty.
That's so fun. I cannot wait. I love
not bad.
that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fi is great. I would rather have Girahim as my sword.
Yeah, I can't remember fully now. It's been about a year or so since I played Skyward Sword HD, and I can't remember if when Demise comes into play, I think Demise is grateful for Girahim. I don't think Demise is like, I've taken advantage of you, now you're my sword. I think, but Girahim's second in command.
Yeah. That's so fun. Because he has these moments in the game where he talks like, oh, like, I'm the demon lord or whatever. And I'm like, but you're not. Like, Ganon is. So that makes a lot of sense then why he talks like that.
I think he literally goes into Demise's sword or literally becomes Demise's sword.
It's a big soul eater situation. Yeah. That's so fun.
Yeah. In fact, when he starts to turn into the sword form, I'm now remembering he has the same kind of cell shading and graphics like Fi.
That's so fun.
Though he might be like a darker black or something like that.
And then that makes sense too why he like is so much. He makes a lot of comments about his body and being like the perfect form and all that kind of stuff. It makes sense because he had a body kind of made for him.
Yeah. Wait, you're right. Oh,
and it's also why he's so weird of like having the whole tongue thing, kind of getting all up in Link's personal space and grabbing onto him and stuff because like. He normally doesn't have a body, so he's just messing around having a good time.
I like where you're going with this. Yeah,
everything is clicking. That's so fun.
Well, I'm excited for you to get to that battle.
Me too.
Let's let me invite you to. Do you have any other standouts? Because we've got 2 more on the list. Here.
I think I'm good with what I have. So what else you got?
Well, let's do a little Impa then.
Impa, okay.
And let's guess do young Impa, even though it's all Impa. No, okay. Any of the Impas. Any of the Impas.
Do you want?
I didn't mean to surprise you.
Me too.
I think that this version of Impa is one of my favorites in the entire Zelda series. I think it's like one of the strongest versions of Impa in the entire Zelda series, and that's how I'll start things off.
Okay. Yeah, I think she's very fascinating. I didn't expect her to look the way she did, like the young version of her, because I'm, the only Impa I've ever seen is Breath of the Wild Impa. So it was a very stark change. She obviously had like the Sheikah look to her, but seeing this like tall, she kind of almost reminded me of a Gerudo.
Tall, thin as a rail.
Yeah, it just has that beautiful tan skin, that blonde hair. Like it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting Impa to look like that, especially because she's so tall.
She's so tall, but she is physically strong too, which is cool.
Absolutely. No, and it's cool seeing her I like the moment when she like kind of pulls Zelda away from Link and tells him like, you need to get your act together because you're not ready and I don't deem you worthy. Kind of having that moment with him was really cool. And when she's like, you're late. Yeah. You should have been here already. She's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You're like, yeah, I was here. Cool. But yeah. So the Ocarina of Time Impa almost looks like a WWE wrestler or something. She's very muscle bound. And so that was our introduction. Well, not really. Technically, Impa is in the very first Zelda game. She's just this old nurse. And so Impa has been realized in a spectrum of body types and personality types. Sometimes she's the Impa from Breath of the Wild. Now, Impa from Breath of the Wild, the little old frog-looking lady. That's who I'm talking about. Not the Age of Calamity. I was going to say, I think of her from Age of Calamity. Sure. Which I think was they remodeled Poya or whatever to make that Impa. But anyway, that's cool too. I like that Impa. I actually play as Impa a lot in Age of Calamity when I play. Yeah, she's a good character. I think she's technically. I think I saw a behind the scenes thing where she was designed for beginner characters because some of her attacks are really strong. Yeah, but I don't care. I like playing as her. So then, in Skyward Sword. It's kind of interesting because we have super old Impa and young Impa, which then is later realized in kind of Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity as well. I also thought old Impa was super cool. Me too. There's a little bit of like, how in the world does the 8-foot tall young Impa actually turn into the little shrivelly old Impa? It's a Japanese animation trope. Yeah, exactly. Very much. It's something that I always think is funny whenever I watch anime. For instance, there's an anime called Dr. Stone. I won't get into it. Basically, go back in time, or dude has to rebuild civilization, basically. Okay. And there's like old people, and they are up to his knees. I see. It's very funny. But I didn't really mind that. So I think it's obvious, but I love that aesthetically old Impa's hair swings like the pendulum of a clock. Yes, and I like that you can make the connection because I'm at the point where I'm in the game, she hasn't explicitly said I'm Impa. She just called herself the wise one still, but you can make that connection. And I think what helps is that Impa, when she's young, has that long strand of hair and then later turns into that long like clock. Yeah. So it's very telling with that way. I love how she is always someone that is very blunt and sees potential. That's why she's frustrated with Link, is because she sees the potential. She's helping Zelda realize hers, and she does the same with Groose. Even though Groose technically isn't a part of like the big prophecy, she helps him out of like her own goodness, out of her own reasons for wanting to see people grow and improve. In general, Impa is realized as a no-nonsense character in most Zelda games. Again, anywhere on the spectrum. But she's almost a little intimidating in Ocarina. And I guess you could say the same for young Impa here in a different way. I don't want to waste too much time. We can talk about Demise a little, but you probably haven't really gotten to too much Demise. And to be honest, there's not much to say about Demise because Demise really is just that final boss in this game. There's a little bit of like meta lore or macro lore where Demise has a bit of a monologue and it talks about how I will always be the one, if you defeat me, I will always come back. And, it feels like the beginning of the Zelda universe. Yeah, Demise retcons Ganondorf's showing up in future games in the timeline, and that's fine. But Demise is very physically imposing. I've seen pictures of him online, even though I haven't in the game yet. I actually, in fact, when I saw the early models of Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom, I thought that was Demise coming back. I was going to say, it looks a lot like him, and I want to point out with the Breath and Tears and with Skyward, they all have that kind of titleage, and I feel like that also connects them a lot, of Demise and Gloom, and I can't think of what the other one is called, but Gloom's Tears of the Kingdom, right? Yeah. In Breath, it was called... Is it not Demise? It might... Oh, in Breath, the goop might be called... Or Despair or something? No, what is it called in Breath of the Wild? I was going to say... What's the nasty gloop called in... Maybe it is Demise. I don't know. Oh, we are blanking. I was going to say, I can look it up really quick, but I instantly made that connection of them. I think it's like a really easy way to kind of pair them together. Yeah. In fact, when I saw the hands in Tears of the Kingdom, the gloop hands, I thought, oh, that's cool. That's Demise coming back. But anyway, so Demise is a spirit that Demise ends up becoming this kind of like Helia style spirit that will imbue itself into a Gerudo male, which becomes Ganondorf. Once every 100 years. Yes. And every
100 years a Garuda male is born, but that doesn't necessarily, Demise does not necessarily go into that character or that person.
I've heard a lot of people online talking back when Tears first was coming out, and you showed like, oh, Ganondorf is coming back. A lot of people, obviously it wasn't going to happen because it doesn't really follow the formula, but it would be so fun to see a future where that male Gerudo isn't Ganon, and you get to play around with him, whether or not he's like a companion, or again, it would be completely taking this on ahead, but I love seeing people's art of what if Link was the male Gerudo that got born and he has to stop Ganon, but it's not him type thing.
Yeah.
I think it's fun just playing around with those ideas.
You and I definitely talked about that Zelda 3000 episode over on Studio Demands It before, where we visualized a video game that would work in that way.
Yeah.
So Demise is Demise. You'll get there. One of the more intimidating battles, I think, because it's a little bit core. It's really is just a sword fight at the end of the day with Demise. I don't know. I remember being kind of a tough one, or at least a kind of a scary one. Sometimes with Ganondorf, you're like, okay, I got you. I know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll spit the fireball back at you. I'll do this or that. And with Demise, it was kind of like, oh, we are really just sword fighting, and I got to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
I do like that about Skyward, how they kind of just throw you into the situations and you have to figure it out as you go. They don't really handhold you much.
By extension, off of Demise, we have to just mention, we're getting towards the end of the episode here, but I have to ask your thoughts about the Imprisoned, because the Imprisoned, like, not exactly, but Demise is inside the Imprisoned. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I figured. On a previous episode, I had stated that the Imprisoned was one of my favorite characters, or one of the most epic moments.
I think it was like our maybe it was epic moments, but maybe it was our scary characters
one of
episode.
Those things.
And I was shocked. I held my tongue.
Yeah, so I think you might have said like, oh, like how many times have you fought him? And I was like, oh, I fought him like once. I have now fought him 3 or 4 times. I am so tired of the Imprisoned. I don't like him
There's
anymore.
one time where you do the Imprisoned, you go to the Temple of Time, and you kind of come back out and have to do the Imprisoned again.
That's where I'm just at right now. Yeah. And I came back out and I'm like, why does he have a tail now? The tail makes it so much worse because I can't even run in between his legs to get to the other side. It's such a pain. That was where I took a break today because I played it a few times and I was getting really frustrated and I'm like, I just need a break. So I'll probably try again when I get home tonight.
You've already passed the part where Groose has the cart going around the edges and stuff.
We did it the first time. We're doing it the second time for that. Doing it the second time that way.
Demise is a kind of a weird character design and creepy, but a little diminishing returns there, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Imprisoned, like I said, the first time I was like, this is really cool. The second time I was like, okay, he can climb now. That's kind of cool. Or maybe that's the third time you fight him. And then from then I was like, oh my gosh, please let it end. Please.
Well, I will say this. The way that you defeat the Imprisoned, I'll say defeat. By the time you do the final dungeon in the game, it's satisfying.
Okay. I'll accept that.
It's nice to put that thing down.
Yeah.
And the way you do is fairly epic.
Okay, I'll accept that. That's the thing. It's not like a game breaker, but it is something that I just had to take a break because I'm very tired. I'm very tired of the Imprisoned. It was cool when you threw in some new mechanics each time, but now that it's just the tail and it just makes traversal even harder, it's like, what's the point? It's just making it harder with traversal.
Oh my gosh. I just want to mention Gapora, which is Zelda's dad, which is the analog for the King of Hyrule.
He's a funny dude.
In Breath of the Wild, there isn't much. Oh, you get more King in Age of Calamity, but like there's not a lot of King development in Breath of the Wild. So for me to ask, what are your thoughts of Gapora?
Oh, I like him a lot more.
I like him a lot. Yeah, a lot more. But really, the Gapora's, I think I'm saying his name wrong. Let me check here.
Oh, I think that's right.
Gapora. Because there's Gabora, there's other like versions in other Zelda games, but Gapora in this game, I think you'll appreciate him even more after a Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Ocarina playthrough, because that character type is a thread, and this one was actually kind of a play on that thread. So to have the King of Hyrule not be the King of Hyrule, but to be a principal of a school was quite different.
Yeah, I like him a lot more because from what I had seen of Breath of the Wild and Age of Calamity and all that, I was like, he's a jerk. I was like, I don't like him.
The Breath of the Wild king kind of is, yeah.
Yeah, so coming to here where I get to see Zelda being very freely, like, just a kid, getting to, like, complain to her dad about Link, or and Link getting to go to him, and even that, there's, like, this funny moment where you're trying to remember, like, the way her song goes, and you can ask him to sing it for you, and he gets all flustered.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fun. He's, like, more satirical in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, and also weirdly sometimes kind of blasé, kind of like, oh, there's trouble? Well, I know you'll handle it.
I was going to say, he's so chill about the fact that his daughter disappeared. He could not care less.
Okay, let's do some quick hits.
Yeah.
Character types, because we're already at 38 minutes here in the second half. How do you feel about the Quee?
They're cute. I like their little sounds when they go Quee.
Yeah.
I like it. I think they're cute. I think they're like a nice little, I mean, I don't know if they're supposed to be, but it feels like a nice little replacement for the
Koroks?
The Koroks.
And the Koroks were invented in release order. The Koroks came around in Wind Waker. And almost the same exact design style as they are in Breath of the Wild, by the way. But the Quee canonically precede the Koroks in the timelines.
Yeah.
If we're doing the timelines. How do you feel about the Goron?
They're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I like how so many of them are intelligent wanderers, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them are what is it called? They're studying.
Well, they're kind of travelers in this game. There isn't really, like, you don't really go to Goron City in this game is the way you do in other Zelda games.
Yeah, I feel like it's a nice turn on its head, because normally I think of the Goron as, I mean, rock-headed. And so it's kind of nice seeing them as like, oh yes, I have found this history, and I'm an archaeologist, and all this different kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true, because the Gorons in Ocarina of Time are like, good job, brother!
Yeah, and even in Breath of the Wild, it's a very like hoo-yah man society type thing. So it was kind of nice seeing them as these more intellectual beings.
Any thoughts on the replacement for the Zora? They're not exactly Zora. They're called something else. The little squid Zora?
Oh, yeah. I think they're funny. I liked the one that I got to chase around and mess with.
Yeah, I'm trying to find their name here real quick. But, oh, no, wait. Nope.
I like the water dragon a lot, too. I like how sassy she is.
Yeah, and such a weird design, too, but it was fine. I was cool with it. Let's see, other character types here. We have a new character in this game from the Zelda series, and it was the I call them the Crash Bandicoots.
Oh, yeah, the little
what are they actually called? Yeah, the mole guys or whatever. Yeah,
I think they were so fun. I imagined all of them with like Australian accents.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think the digging was a really fun mechanic, because I finally got the gloves that I could burrow and kind of run around underground and do stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of new. It was kind of neat. The digging gloves have shown up in other games before in release order, but this one had a nice little twist to it.
Yeah, and I liked how, I mean, they kind of fit that role that the Gorons used to, of like, they're like the bro roles of like, hey, you help me out, I help you out, like type thing.
Yeah. They might even have said like brother or something like that.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, I love them, and they're so funny getting into weird situations, and you like, Link, again, I had said this earlier, they're like, oh, help me, and then Link's just like, do I have to? And they're like, please, dude, what are you doing? It feels like a very fun back and forth between Link and them, because I feel like Link probably gets the vibes from them, so they kind of have this like bro-y like back and forth.
Yeah, I see. They were fine. Some of their character models alarmed me a little bit the first time I played, but yeah, they're fun guys. But I couldn't get over the fact that they just really looked like Crash Bandicoot.
They really do.
I kind of had to get off of that a little. So that's our character types. I think I think we're pretty good here. Unless you have any other standouts, we could dig a little deeper into maybe some of the other people at Skyloft, but I think we're good.
I was gonna say, I think those were the ones that really stuck with me, and the ones that really mattered to me the most. I mean, there are
the guy that
ones.
Upgrades your sword and shield. He's fun.
I was gonna say, he's cool, dude.
Fun to see him at night when he's like working.
I have one thing.
Okay, here we go.
I had to write his full name.
Pulling up notes.
I had to tell his full name. I would even stress to say hate.
Oof, which is a word we don't love using on this show.
Not for character reasons, just because of who he is.
Okay.
LD301S Scrapper. Is that the little guy that
picks up the stuff for you and flies
and
back.
makes fun of you all the time and is a simp for Fi.
Oh,
No.
Hot takes.
Oh, I wish Link could beat him up.
Oh my gosh. Salty.
You're calling me short stuff, saying that I'm not doing nothing, that he has to put his back in, and then I have to escort him around, and one little hit from a monster has him screaming in my ear. No.
I get it. Well, that is a heck of a note to finish this episode on. Fair enough. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, oh my gosh, wait, please. We have to do one more.
Yeah.
We got to talk about it. Honorable mention, Beetle. Loved him. We've talked about him before.
Yeah.
Beetle in this game's second appearance in release order.
Yes.
He'd appeared in Wind Waker first. I think I've already talked many times on this show, maybe to you personally, about how I love going to Beetle's home at night.
Yeah, and he talks differently.
Have you gone there yet or anything?
I have. I've gone there a few times now.
There you go.
I love him. I think he's great. Nothing in my heart could ever stop me from loving Beetle because he's my special guy ever since Breath of the Wild. So now that I get to go back and see him previously, I think I told you, I didn't know he was from previous games. So then when I played Skyward, I went up into the air shop and saw Beetle there. I lost my mind. I was losing my mind. And so I also think it's funny how sassy he can be as well, of him saying like, oh, like you're making the ship heavier to pedal around, or like if you don't buy anything, he'll like pull the trap door and throw you out.
This is the sassiest version of Beetle.
Absolutely.
And I just realized something. This might be one of the sassiest Zelda games.
I would say so. I think that's why I've loved it so much, because it feels like there's so much character in it, just from like how sassy everyone is.
The drama.
Yeah, because even like the lumpy pumpkin, like you mess up the dude's chandelier and he's like, you gotta work for me now, like you gotta pay this off. And then when you finally get his chandelier back, he's like, if you ever pull something like that again.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting because it must be, I have no problem with this, but a little bit of, every game is also a product of the time that it was made. And it's so sometimes one of my favorite things about doing this podcast and talking about 40 years worth of games is we can examine each game, but also it's kind of a reflection of where gaming was at the time that the game came out and where society was at the time. And I'm not saying that society was sassy in the mid 2000s or whatever it was.
But that was the thing, like the mid 2000s, like you think like all the shows on like Disney Channel were like the teens that were like sassy and whatever. I guess,
and by the way, I think this was more like 2010, early 2010s, but still.
Yeah, early 2000s. I mean, that was what was on when I was growing up, because by then I think I was 7 in 2010. So I was watching like iCarly, where Sam, her mom has been in jail for everything and she's like beating people up, and you're watching like different cartoons that has a similar thing. So if they're marketing it towards these new generations, marketing it towards people of that time period, that was what it was. It was sassiness. It was people beating each other up. It was people being rude, and people thought it was funny. And
the school stuff. And then, of course, Twilight Princess is heavily informed by culture at the time, was just going nuts for Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. So it was a lot of like the middle, not the Eastern, the Eastern European kind of aesthetic and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and going even more with Skyward, with that high school, all the TV shows for like then were high school drama, comedies. Yeah, you're right. Never even thought about that. So there it is. Anyways, totally cool, totally fun. Thank you for that, Kady. If people want to find you on the internet, where can they do so? You can find me at my website, kadyroberts.com, at Kady, or on my Instagram, Mind of Kady. And yeah, that kind of covers it for me. Do we have a link to your site in your bio on our site? I think so. Yeah, I think it's there too. I'll take a look. I've got to do a little bit of reorganizing over there in the bio section, but people can find me at Raptor Paint on all the things, the Twitters and the Threads and the Instagrams and the whatever. If you want to DM me about controller thoughts and choices about different kind of Switch controllers, I'm a massive controller nerd. I love talking about them. Love talking about the different companies, the different button layouts, and all the rest. You're more than welcome to do that. You can find the show at Another Zelda Pod on Twitter and Another Zelda Podcast on everything else, Instagram. And if you go to YouTube, Another Zelda Podcast, really kind of just Googling Another Zelda Podcast will bring up plenty of things. Or you can go to our website where there are links to all of the things, anotherzeldapodcast.com. And also, if you want to interact with the show or interact with fellow fans, we have a Discord. And the Discord is popping. Oh my gosh, it's so active that I can't even keep up. Yeah. Honestly. We've got Hazel over there working as a Discord manager. I know Shane jumps in here and there. Celeste used to do a bit of it before she had to take her exit. And the activity over there is really, really charming. Yeah, you can go and talk about any of the episodes, or if you just want to talk with someone that also likes the show,
about your life or school or...
Well, we've broken it down into a ton
Yeah.
of sub-channels. There's a sub-channel for every single episode, and Hazel and I think Shane keep that up and going. Maybe it's mostly Hazel these days. I'm not quite sure. Because it just happens at this point.
Yeah.
It's like its own living entity. And then we also have sub-threads for every single game. So if you just want to talk about a specific game, and then some other fun categories too.
Yeah, so you can always find someone over there that is into the same things you are. I just want to do a little plug for that.
Well, actually, the last couple times we've recorded episodes, I've forgotten to plug Discord. So thank you very much.
All right.
We'll end it on that.
We'll end it on that.
Kady, I'll see you in the next episode. We don't know what the next episode's going to be.
It's going to be a surprise for all of us.
Yeah, we have got about 3 weeks to decide what it's going to be.
It's a secret for everyone.
It's a secret to everybody. Indeed. Including us.
Including us.
I don't know. Maybe we got to do, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Anyways.
Send us some ideas.
Until
guys.
then. Yeah, fair enough. Until then, have a good time finishing Skyward Sword.
Yes, I'm excited. And then I'm moving on to Ocarina.
Yeah, cool. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.